Mic check. Peas and carrots, peas and carrots. Pulverize. Hi, I'm Ashley Daigle, and this is Advice from the Cheerbrarian. Never heard that word before? Well, that's because I smushed two words together because I felt like it. This week, we're going to do what we always do. Mix a dollop of advice to improve your life, born from a few of my successes and a boatload of my mistakes, with the book recommendation of the week, unearthed by my voracious love of reading, from self-help to historical fiction and everything in between. Today, we will be speaking with Angie Kim, author of the novel Happiness False. We will talk about her book, her writing, and her takes on happiness. If you like what you hear on this podcast, and I really hope you do, please, pretty please, with two cherries on top, tell people about it, because sharing is caring. And now, let's get into it. Last week on the podcast, I talked about my climb toward happiness, the inevitable teeth gnashing and hair pulling of trying to understand what happiness is, how I can have more of it, what I can do about it. In that episode, I dropped that knowledge and whatever else I've been able to glean on my time on this blue rock. I also talked about my 3 happiness principles, which are intended to make happiness a little less confusing and a teeny bit more manageable. So if you missed that episode, go check it out. I'll be here waiting because that's how pause works. I'm waiting whenever you want to be here. So do that and then come back. Okay, great. We'll keep going. Last week, I recommended Happiness Falls because I thought it was a super great book and it really added to what I will call my carousel of knowledge vis-a-vis happiness. It gave me more to noodle on when it came to having a greater understanding of what happiness is and how I could find more for myself. I really enjoyed reading her book. I got to see her speak at the public library because this book was the one book, one community pick. So that meant they did an event. They really, promoted this book out in the community. And at the talk, she said, she was excited to talk to people. She mentioned she had attended a book club on the way to this talk and she'd be happy to talk to people. And I was like, well, I'm people. And so I sent her an Instagram message and I was like, hey, would you want to be on my podcast? And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh boy, now I'm going to do that. And so that is what happened. And I talked to her on this podcast and you get to hear it. And I'm so excited. I'm going to take a deep breath so I can finish this intro. Okay. So, Angie Kim. She moved as a preteen from South Korea to the suburbs of Baltimore. She studied philosophy at Stanford, attending Harvard Law. She has had several careers in her lifetime, which she will tell us about. And her debut novel, Miracle Creek, won the Edgar Award and was named one of the 100 best mysteries and thrillers of all time by Time magazine. Wow. And also, last week, if you heard that episode, I was gushing about how much I enjoyed this book. And so now you get to hear our conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I am so excited to welcome Angie Kim to this podcast. Applause for Angie Kim. Woo! Tapping the microphone. How are you today, Angie? So excited to meet you.
Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Great.
I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Mhm.
We've had to reschedule a couple, I guess only once, but it feels like a lot more because I've had some coughing issues. So if my voice sounds bizarre, that's why it is. But so I apologize in advance.
That's all right. We'll roll with it. Well, I am so excited to talk about your book. Last week, I teed it up on an episode of the podcast where I was talking about happiness, and your book was just chef's kiss, perfectly connected to my interests and happiness. And so, my mission for us today, Angie, is to have a spoiler-free conversation about your book.
Great.
Because
Love that.
I'm that person where if somebody's like, this isn't a spoiler, but let me stop you. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
Yeah. So, and of course, we're going to whet everyone's appetite. So they have to run out immediately to the first independent bookstore they see and buy this book, right? So we're going to do it.
Yay. Yeah.
So let's dive in. First of all, the story of you writing this book, I find very interesting. So I believe in 2010, you had a short story. And then in the time period between then and when the book got finished, you pivoted, right, from being a lawyer to a successful writer. And so personally, I'm not a long game person. I find
Mhm.
it challenging to follow through over a long period of time. So how did you stay the course?
Yeah, actually, it's even a longer period of time than
Oh,
that,
wow.
if you
Okay.
can believe it. So I
Mhm.
was a lawyer back in the 90s, and so that was being a lawyer was my first career, and being a writer is actually my 5th career. So you
Oh
can see
gosh.
how
Yeah.
many it's kind of evolved. So I
Mhm.
was a lawyer, and then I pivoted to business. I was a management consultant and a .com entrepreneur, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And I
Mhm.
had 3 boys who are all fine now, knock on wood, but
Mhm.
they all had medical issues as babies and as toddlers. And so to deal with some of the sort of turmoil of that and just emotional, just feeling isolated from the world, I started writing.
Mhm.
It was the first time I had really done any creative writing, first with essays. And my husband sort of wisely said, these are not just your stories, but there are family stories, there are kid stories. And,
Yeah.
he worried about medical privacy issues and such. And he said, so why not try fiction? And I was like, I mean, I'm an avid reader, but I've
Yeah.
never written fiction before. So I started taking classes, in my local writer center in Bethesda, Maryland.
Mhm.
And so I started writing in my 40s and
Gotcha.
in 2010. And that is one of the first short stories I ever wrote was about this family that is at the heart of Happiness Falls. I finished that story. It's a magic
Mhm.
realism story. It won a contest. It was published in 2013. And that voice, the narrative voice of Mia, who
Mhm.
was 14 years old in the story, she's kind of funny, she's irreverent, she is very smart, kind of thinks she knows everything, but
Sure.
obviously doesn't.
I mean,
You
you said
know,
how old is she? How old is she?
she
20?
was 14 then,
14,
she's
yeah.
20 in
They
the
do. They know.
novel.
Yeah, they know everything at 14, that's
They
true.
totally know everything, exactly. And I have 2 kids who are right around
Yeah.
that age, who are
Mhm.
in college. And so it's not like I was, taking anything out on them by writing this, somewhat obnoxious character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so her voice stayed with me. The characters stayed with me. This whole family, they're a biracial family. The
Mhm.
mom is a Korean immigrant to the US and the dad is white guy, and the kids are biracial, and there are 3 of them. There are 2 fraternal twins, Mia and John, and then the young
Mhm.
baby of the family, Eugene, who is a non-speaker.
Yeah.
He has autism and Angelman syndrome.
Mhm.
So this family just wouldn't leave me alone over the years. Even as I was writing other stories and other novels, my first novel, Miracle Creek, I kept on thinking about them. And as my kids were getting older and applying to colleges, I would wonder, like, I wonder what colleges John and Mia are applying. Like,
Mm.
I wonder if they're applying to the same colleges. I wonder what
Yeah.
essays they're writing for their college applications. Ridiculous
Mhm.
things, given that they're fictional characters, which I know.
But fictional
But
characters are real in your heart, you
right,
know?
exactly. And so they became real in my mind. And then
Mhm.
when I heard about some therapies, alternative communication therapies that
Right.
dear friends of mine who have children who are non-speaking, who have
Mhm.
autism, that they had gone through with their kids, I found myself wondering, I wonder if this family, in my story,
Mhm.
Eugene's family has tried these therapies with Eugene, and I
Right.
wonder how that worked out. And so that was sort of the germ of this novel for me.
Mhm. Gotcha, okay. And so you talked a little bit about Eugene. I wanna say, though, I said this last week in the pod, the first sentence of this book, "We didn't call the police right away."
Yeah.
Did that just pop into your mind? Was that like a long genesis to get to that sentence? Because it just pulled me right in, right
Oh,
away.
thank you so much. I mean, so that sentence did come to me the first day that I started writing
Really?
this story in earnest. But
Wow.
having said that, I had been thinking about and writing,
Mhm,
sort of free writing about and talking about the story
mhm.
for a good year and a half.
Yeah.
So I had been developing the story. I had been thinking about the characters, where they are, what the situation is. I had been
Mhm.
teasing it. When I was on tour for Miracle Creek, my first novel, people would ask me, "What are you working on now?" And I would always say, "Well, a
Mhm.
father and a son go into the woods one
Yeah.
morning, and only the son walks out and
Whoa.
returns home, and
Mhm.
he can't speak, so he can't tell anyone what happened."
So
And so
good.
the father, and so that's so I had been working on that for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And the first time I made and I'm a huge procrastinator, so I'm doing the same thing with my third novel right now. So I haven't reached the state
That's
yet where I'm,
refreshing. Thank you for sharing.
oh, good. Yeah, yeah. And so like for months, I was like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
going to work on my story today. I'm going to work on my novel today. And
Mhm.
I didn't. And
Yeah.
finally, one day in June, I was like, in June of 2020, during the lockdown, I was like, I
Mhm.
have to do it. I am so mad at myself. And
Right.
when I did, I wrote for like a good 3 hours, and maybe like
Mhm.
into the second hour, that
Mm.
sentence appeared.
Got it.
And I thought, that is the beginning sentence.
Got
I
it.
found
So
my beginning sentence. And so
right.
then I
So
was like,
yeah.
okay, I'm done. I'm done for the rest of this month.
There
No,
you go.
just
Beautiful.
kidding. Yeah.
So success came immediately after hours and years of procrastination, pondering, thinking, toying, all of that
Torturing myself.
preparation. Right,
Absolutely.
torturing, and then
Yeah.
just immediate success.
Immediate. Right.
How those things go. It's important. That's a great story to share about like the road to success, right? It is paved with good intentions and, navel gazing, questioning oneself, all those things, right? Oh, wonderful. Well, I want to shift a little bit. I want to talk about happiness because I know
Okay.
from hearing you speak at the
Yeah.
Schomburg Library how
Mm.
important it is to you. And I mean, it's in the title of the book. And so we talked a little bit about, your journey to being a writer. I find it super inspiring because you've been able to connect your passions and your experience and causes together to make something beautiful that resonates with other people. So, firstly, thank you for doing that. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you so much for saying that. That's so nice,
Yeah.
and that's so kind and generous. And I love hearing reader reactions. So that's amazing to me. Thank you.
Yeah. So to that point, I myself am questing that I forgot a point I was gonna say. Hold on. Blah, blah, blah.
Uh,
So at the library, I remember you saying specifically you are looking for something to make me happy and satisfied on a day-to-day level when it came to your journey of being a writer.
yeah.
So as someone who is questing for that themselves, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are, what does that happiness feel like when you find it? How do you recognize it? How did you know,
Yeah.
like, I need to keep on this path?
Absolutely. So I think that's something that I was thinking about and talking about with respect to my quest for sort of the perfect career or job for me,
Mhm.
like what
Mhm.
do I want to be in life, that kind of thing. So for and that's really why I left the law despite
Yeah.
having, gone through law school and all of that training and all that, was that I just wasn't happy day to day with what I was doing. I was happy in the courtroom itself, but that's like 5% of your, day,
Mhm.
that. And I just wasn't happy with all the infighting and the fighting with the opposing counsel and everything that I was
Yeah.
doing. And same thing with, all the other careers and things like that I had. And I think when I first started fiction writing, I just thought, okay, this is it. I have found that thing that is the
Mhm.
combination of the day to day sort of happiness. And as much as I gripe about how much I hate writing and I hate, like, the
Everyone does, right?
yeah,
I mean,
the
any
first
writer.
draft,
Yeah.
but that's not true. So I make it a point every day
Mhm.
to sort of take what I've written and just at least come up. My goal is to have one sentence that just makes me happy, to have
Mm.
created one sentence that, just I just think, okay, this is a beautiful sentence, whether it be the rhythm or the image or the idea that it contains, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And if that's the only thing that I've done that day after 12 hours, it doesn't matter. I just want to have one sentence that I can say that makes me happy that I created that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's that feeling of satisfaction of kind of like looking back at a macro level and sort of
Mhm.
saying like, am I like satisfied with the direction that I'm going
Mhm.
in? And I feel that way as a writer, and at the micro level, at the day-to-day level, like just having those moments where
Mhm.
you feel like, okay, this is what I want to be doing with my life. That's what makes me happy. So yeah.
That's you said something really important in there, I think, about sort of setting and managing your own expectations, because that's
Hmm.
something I struggle with at the end of the day saying, "Oh, have I done enough? Am I doing
Hmm.
enough?" And it's like, well, if I'm not clear in setting what enough looks like, well, then I'm never gonna think I've done enough because I haven't defined it for myself.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of taking whether it's, your writing, any personal pursuit, work, finding one thing that's gonna be your metric for the day. Maybe it's, have I impacted one person positively? Have I made one step toward the art I wanna work on? That can
Hmm.
be your success. It doesn't have to be that you've done, how like, do you do writing goals as far as, like, how many words in a day, or it's just the one sentence?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't care how many actual words or
Mhm.
minutes or anything. I just need to have that one sentence.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I want more than one
Sure,
sentence,
sure.
but I
Yeah.
want that one magic moment where I'm like, this is the anchor.
Mhm.
This is the anchor for the scene. This is the anchor for the opening, whatever it is.
Mhm.
That I love this so much that I wanna, I mean, if you could do that every day, that would be amazing. I don't think I do that every day, but I
Mhm.
at least have something that I feel like, okay, that's a good sentence on a daily basis.
Just one perfect sentence.
Yeah.
So, challenge for you listeners is, what can you take in your life and simmer it down to have one thing that you hold yourself accountable to? Not 5, not 10, not 20. One little thing, and give yourself a little pat on the back for doing it. That's what I want you to think about. So good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, I have another thing I know we're both interested in. So,
Oh,
in the idea of happiness, right, there
mhm.
are a lot of assumptions that if good things happen to me, I will be happier. And if less good things happen to me, I will be unhappy.
Yeah.
But the research shows that's maybe not true. Like, I know we've both read about the same study with lottery winners versus accident
Yes.
victims, right? Can you
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about that study and then maybe how that influenced your writing and the concept of happiness?
Yeah, and I'll give a little context first. I think
Mhm.
I've been obsessed with the idea of happiness for a long, long time. I'm a Korean immigrant.
Mhm.
Back in Korea, we were very, very poor. Like, we didn't have indoor plumbing, so we didn't
Wow.
have toilets, showers, any of that kind of stuff. My parents and I'm an only child. The three of us lived and slept in one room
Mhm.
of somebody else's house, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so when we found out that we were moving to the US, which we did when I was in middle school at age 11, I remember telling everybody and showing them like pictures of my aunt's house, which was this beautiful suburban house with things that we
Mhm.
didn't even know like exactly what they were, like,
Yeah.
indoor plumbing, like toilets and showers and,
Mhm.
your own bedroom with beds that were off the floor, which was a very weird concept to me. Like
Yeah.
all these things,
Yeah.
I remember people saying it's like you won the lottery.
Mm. Which yeah.
And so that stuck in my head. And then I came to the US and I wasn't happy.
Mm.
I was told that I was. I was told that I should be, but
Mm.
I wasn't. I, lost, the ability to speak. I lost really my parents and my relationship with them in the process because they were working so hard. All of this
Mhm.
stuff. I was really miserable in the first couple of years that we were here. And I remember that really affecting my idea of like happiness, like objective versus subjective levels of happiness, what I
Right.
should be feeling versus what I was actually feeling. So then fast forward to when I was studying philosophy in college, and I did hear, some of these about the lottery
Right.
winner
Right. Mm.
study, and which is fascinating, which is, a group of social psychologists take a group of lottery winners and a group of people who have been of accident victims who have been in accidents and who have lost some of their limbs.
Right.
And about a year after, they measure their happiness levels. What happens is that it turns out that their happiness levels are actually not much different, if at all,
That's wild.
between these two groups after
Mhm.
only a year after this event. And in fact, the strange thing is that if you measure happiness in terms of sort of the ability of the small things, like,
Mhm.
like a cup of tea or a nice, like seeing a nice phone call from a friend you haven't heard from in a long time, or, something like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Turns out that the paraplegic accident victim group is actually more impacted by, like, positively by these
Yeah.
little things as a group than the
Mhm.
lottery winners. So
So they
people
weren't
are like,
appreciating the small things, maybe.
exactly, they're
Yeah.
able to get more joy out of these little things.
Hmm.
So, it's one of these paradoxical things, and of course people are like, "Oh, well, money doesn't make you happy and whatever." But it's more than that, because
Mhm.
if you think about, how important mobility and things like that are, you
Yeah.
would think that losing that would make you really, very kind of miserable for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I posit in the book, the father who goes missing in my novel
Mhm.
Happiness Falls, Adam, it turns out, without the family having realized it, is
Mhm.
that he was kind of obsessed with happiness theories and
Right.
relativity of happiness. And one of the things that he was really thinking about is the idea of the baseline of your life
Yeah.
and how quickly we can adjust to the baseline. So, so like a lottery winner, you win the lottery and you're like
Yeah.
so happy, but
Right.
very quickly we get used to that. You get a new
Yeah.
house, you move in, and at
And
first you're
it's
like,
not
this is
enough. Yeah.
amazing. And then it's like, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, what next? Like,
Right.
and so you're the new house and the wealthy lifestyle becomes your
Mhm.
new baseline very quickly. And as soon as that becomes your new baseline, you need things to happen that are above that baseline in order to make you happy.
Yeah.
And, whereas the paraplegic, same thing,
Mhm.
yes, you're very upset and you're miserable for a while, but you adjust and you become used to it, and that becomes your new life. And so that sort of somewhat lower, some would say,
Mhm.
lifestyle becomes your new baseline, and then the things that adjust upward from that, like, a nice phone call from a friend or whatever,
Yeah.
can give you those little jolts of joy. And
Yeah.
so, like, what can we take away from that
Right.
in
Yeah.
so far as baselines and our expectations,
Mhm.
and can we try to be mindful of that, to sort of say, you know what, let's, like, keep our baseline back
Mhm.
to the original for the lottery winner. Let's remember back to when before we won the lottery and we were living in, not quite as nice surroundings.
Right.
For somebody who gets a promotion, let's not get used to, your new
Mhm.
job title right away. Let's remember back to when you first started working here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me as a
Mhm.
writer, it was really instructive, because when Happiness Falls was coming out,
Mhm.
I had to remind myself constantly, my baseline cannot be, what Miracle Creek did. Because
Right.
if that's true, then anything that if Happiness Falls doesn't get every single thing that Miracle Creek got, every single
Mm.
prize or, milestone or whatever, then that would make me miserable. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
No, I have to
Gotcha.
remember that my baseline as a writer
Mhm.
is the person who sat down in front of my computer
Mhm.
saying, I have an idea. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to write it. I have
Right.
no idea if I'm going to be able to finish the story. And then just the fact that I'm looking at this book, if that's my baseline, the fact that I have this novel that I'm holding in my hand that I
Yeah.
finished
Yeah.
is, like, amazing, and brings me
Absolutely.
joy.
Well, and so much of life, it's like it's a mixture of talent and luck, right? You can't control the outcome. So, what I'm hearing and sort of learning from all this and thinking about is all you can manage is your own expectations. And
Right.
so it sounds like what you're saying is if people can like find a way to have a practice where you reflect on when you're feeling frustrated maybe with your status quo or what your life is, think back because there's probably a time in your life where you wished you could have some of the things you have now. But
Exactly.
if you're always focused on ahead, what's next, what's next, what's next, you're forgetting how far you've come, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. There's
and
a
I
quote from the
Mhm.
Dalai Lama that says, "Don't forget to remember to want what you already have." Yeah,
Yes.
which I think is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I was gonna say something else, and then my little train of thought just
Oh,
hopped over
no.
the choo-choo
I'm
tracks. It
sorry.
happens. It's okay. But we are going to move on from this topic. I have to ask. This is sort of my last question, except there's a secret other question, so my second to
Okay.
last question that I have to ask. So with all the research that you've done and from your own life, what do you think the key to happiness is?
I mean, I think it is moderating your expectations, not
Mhm.
lowering them so much that,
Right.
you ruin the experience for yourself. Like if you're
Mhm.
going to a nice trip, don't tell yourself that the trip is going to be awful, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Just so you lower your expectations so that when it exceeds your expectations, it's good because the process of expecting something good brings me pleasure anyway, and I
Mhm.
think it brings most of us pleasure. So don't
Yeah.
deprive yourself of that. But at the same time, just moderating your expectations and moderating your baseline and remembering back to
Mhm.
the old you, the
Yeah.
the younger you or
Mm.
the more naive you, whatever you want to call it with respect to what you're doing now, who
Mhm.
would kill, who would have killed to
Mhm.
have some of the things that you have. Like when I
Right.
was starting out as a brand new writer,
Mhm.
having the agent that I have now, the editor that I
Sure.
have now, these books, being a New York Times bestselling author, like all of these things
Mhm.
are things that I dreamed about.
Right.
And it's so easy to just like take stuff like that, take all the things that we have, whether it be a spouse that you love or
Mm.
healthy, a beautiful house in a neighborhood that you would have like loved to have lived in when you were like, just starting
Yeah.
out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, to sort of remember back to that baseline.
Mhm.
And it's like the Adam, the father in my
Mhm.
novel says, is it as simple as like 3 times a day, just like brushing your teeth?
Yeah.
Thinking about that baseline and
Mhm.
reminding yourself what your true baseline is.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that every time I brush my teeth. I really
Yeah.
do like think about, okay, my baseline, like
Right.
what was that? What is that? And compared to that baseline, how
Mhm.
lucky am I,
It
now?
it's so funny you mentioned brushing your teeth because I literally talked about that on the podcast last week. So
Oh,
I was defining happiness and I looked at some of the work of Brené Brown and was surprised to find that the research is not really clear on what happiness is and that it's more about like your satisfaction in the moment. And so sometimes, we're trying to define do I have a happy life? My point was that's kind of a fool's errand to ask yourself that question because you're too macro. You need to be micro. And so my advice was, gratitude practices have been shown to help with happiness and all these things. And, to either do a gratitude journal or when you're brushing your teeth, think about the 3 things you're grateful for that day. And that can be a micro situation that I think can help with that macro happiness and also help with that baseline. Because if I end the day and go, oh, today was horrible, go to bed, that's it. Well, that's the narrative I'm telling myself. But if I take a second and say, okay, it was horrible, except, my kid did this really funny thing. I ate really good nachos and whatever, that changes the whole narrative of the day and starts your next
yeah,
day a little better, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we've had a lovely chat, but I'm so excited to ask you about this. You've got some exciting news to talk to us about. So tell us what is going on with Happiness Falls that we need to know about.
Oh, I think you're talking about the TV stuff, right?
I am talking about the TV
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just announced very recently that
Mhm.
Happiness Falls it's being adopted for TV.
So
And what's really, really cool is Ethan Hawke, who
I just
is, I think,
I just can't.
perfect for
So
the
per
role of the father. Like,
so perfect.
I can't even say how perfect he is.
Yeah.
So he is on board. with his wife to produce, to be part of the production team. So I'm so excited about. And the people, and Stone Village, which is the production company, especially Scott Steindorf, who is the head, who will be executive producing. They're so perfect for it too. They just finished Station 11, which was like such a
Oh my
huge favorite
gosh.
of mine, right? With respect
Yeah.
to the very recent adaptation that I just love so much. And so
Yeah.
that has been amazing. And he and that company and Scott Steindorf just finished a new documentary called Understanding Autism, which is out on
Wow.
PBS right now.
Okay.
And Scott himself is autistic. And so I just love that, that sort of commitment to bringing that viewpoint,
Mhm.
to TV and to the TV version of the story, and that commitment to neurodiversity. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that is all wonderful news. I know
Yeah.
that the speed of TV is confusing, so we will keep our eyes peeled for wherever it shows up and whenever it shows up. And I mean, I know you already said it, but Ethan Hawke, like when I saw that news, beside
It's
myself.
amazing, right?
He's
Yeah.
so talented and
Yeah.
just, what a guy.
Yeah.
Well, this has been just such an outstanding chat. And so
Oh,
I'm so glad that you are here today. We have to do one more little thing though, because this
oh, okay.
podcast is about advice and it's about reading.
Okay.
And so I want to talk about what our unrequired reading should be for this day's
Mm,
episode. So of course, listeners. So once y'all have read Happiness Falls, and
yes.
once you have read Angie's other book, Miracle Creek, what else? What's a good book? What is something that you think people should check out?
Yeah, so I'm just looking over at my little list of my pile
Mm.
of my touchstone books that I read
Oh,
as I was writing Happiness Falls. And
oh,
one book that
wonderful.
I read daily as
Mm.
I was writing Happiness Falls is
Mhm.
Never Let Me Go
By
by
Kazu
Kazuo
Yeah.
Ishiguro.
Yeah, I've
Which
read that one.
I just love the voice of this one, and his,
Mhm,
more recent Clara and the Sun, of course, which is amazing as well.
mhm.
But I just love it. It's just so gorgeous. A retrospective narrator. Another one that, if I can, I do one more?
You can do as many as you want,
Okay.
ma'am.
One other one that I just love is Chemistry by Wakey Wang.
Oh, I'm not
So this
familiar
was
with that
another
one.
one that I
Mhm.
read probably almost daily as I was writing Happiness Falls. Yeah, it's about an overworked PhD candidate in chemistry. And
Oh.
it is really, really amazing, about just like lots of little vignettes that are so funny and just achingly tender and just so wonderful. I love it. I can't tell you how amazing the voice of this narrator is. And so I love voicey books, and this is just at the top of it.
Got it. So both of those books are you said voicey books?
Yeah, voicey.
Got it. So if
And
you
then
want a voicey book oh, we got
here's
another one.
another one.
I
Swamp
love
in
it.
India by Karen Russell.
I haven't heard of that one. What is that
Oh,
one
it's
about?
wonderful.
Tell me more.
It was out, like, it was a Pulitzer Prize finalist,
Oh,
maybe.
love that.
I don't remember how many years ago that was. It
Okay.
was a while ago. But it's I read this probably almost daily when I was writing Happiness Falls too, because like I told you,
Mhm.
Happiness Falls is narrated by 20-year-old Mia,
Yes.
who is very intelligent and very,
Mhm.
sort of like hyperverbal and all that kind of
You
stuff.
used the word irreverent, and I remember I used that in my book review of it because I
Oh,
that's exactly irreverent. Yeah.
yes. So this is also has upheaval in a family. So a
Mhm.
13-year-old Ava
Okay.
is narrating this novel about what happens to her family after her mother passes away.
Mm.
And there's lots of shenanigans, and there's ghosts, and there's amazing
Mhm.
things. But the biggest thing up to me about this novel is the 13-year-old Ava, who is so smart, who
Mhm.
is so funny, and just uses words in such an creative, amazing ways. And Karen Russell is such a stylist, and her prose is
Mhm.
impeccable. And so I highly recommend it to anybody who loves language and
Wonderful.
words. Yeah.
So now we have 3 recommendations, and I will put the
Yes.
titles in the show notes. So again, after you read Happiness Falls and after you read Miracle Creek, then you can read those 3 books in that
Yay.
order. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Also, for one lucky listener, I'm gonna hold it up so Angie knows how serious I am. Boom,
Ooh.
here's a copy of Happiness Falls that
Oh.
I am gonna give away to someone that I bought at
Oh.
Independent Bookstore Day. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, thanks. So hit me up on my social post for this with the yellow chair and with the word gimme. Just gimme. And then you may win your own copy of
There
Happiness
you go.
Falls. But don't worry, I need to show you this too, Angie. This is my own copy that I found. This was literally, I
Oh,
think, the day before we confirmed we were going to talk. It was
yeah.
in my little free library in my neighborhood.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it has the library sticker on it. So then,
Yeah,
and
it's the
so,
one read, one library, one
yeah,
community, one read from
yeah.
Schaumburg. Oh, I love
I didn't
that.
have a copy yet because I checked it out at the library because I was in the library book club about it, you know.
Mm.
Well, anyway, this has been outstanding. I have had fun today. I hope you have too. And I thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye bye. So that's it. Today's episode. I love a little recap because life is busy and I want you to have at least one little nugget of wisdom to take with you. So, what did we do today? Well, today we amazingly and excitedly talked with author Angie Kim about her book Happiness Falls and how her interest in happiness has impacted her life and her writing. Also, the paperback is out today, so you should order it, or the hardcover, or the Kindle, whatever you want. And remember, if you comment "gimme" on my yellow chair social media post, you could win a free copy that I purchased at Independent Bookstore Day. In Unrequired Reading, our spectacular guest Angie recommended 3 great books that she read frequently, if not daily, during the writing of Happiness Falls. The first one was Never Let Me Go by Kazu Ishiguro. I can say that's a good one because I've already read that one too. Chemistry by Wiki Wang, and Swamplandia by Karen Russell. These are all books that she liked for being voicey with great narrators. If you liked what you heard and want to support me and this podcasting endeavor, please, pretty please, share a link to an episode with 2 other human beings. And if you're wondering, gosh, I wish there was a convenient place to see resource links, well, look no further than the show notes. I'll post those things on my Facebook and Instagram pages as well. Now go on, get out of here, read a little more, drink more water. Okay, bye!